When we think of trafficking, there's this Hollywood concept where children are just plucked off the street and forced into this terrible situation. It doesn't always work like that.
We need to go out and bring Christians together, bring believers together, non-believers alike, and educate everyone that this is trafficking, not prostitution. These are victims and not volunteers.
This is the Transformational Life Consulting Podcast with Deepa Grandin, MD, where Christians like you get the practical support and tools you need to build your spiritual, mental, and physical well-being, and to guide you on your journey to health and wholeness based on evidence-based science and God's Word. I am your host, Dr. Deepa Grandin. One of the things I've been especially impressed with, and maybe you can tell us and our listeners more, is because, Mumbai is so hard to find jobs. And you guys have done such a great job in reintegrating these individuals into society by giving them meaningful work. How have you succeeded in doing that?
I first must start by saying it has not been easy, but by God's grace, we've been able to see success over a long period of time. I think Sarah's vision is fulfilling dreams, and we've seen through experience that fulfilling dreams is a long-term commitment. It's not a short-term commitment, so we have to make long-term commitments with our participants. But over the years, our present project has been working since '97, so that's like 27 years now. And the work that we are doing with the women also has been running since 2001. And so that's also a sizable number of years. Over these years, we've been able to build a good network with job placement agencies and with various employers. So thankfully, they have been supportive, when it comes to placing these women into jobs. There is though a challenge. Many times these women don't get the salary that they aspire for, because what they earn through the work in the red light areas is much higher, and the industry cannot offer them the same. But then many women, after much counseling, do agree to those kind of jobs. So what we have seen is, with respect to prisoners, we've been able to, depending on their skill as well, we've been able to place them in jobs like accountants, housemaid, some office work, being drivers, the auto rickshaw drivers, painting, nursing, patient care. Even with the women, patient care, housekeeping, backstitching, working in a manufacturing company, doing packaging jobs, and so on, has been some of the jobs that we've been able to place them into. On an average, we've been able to see them get salaries of about 10 to 12,000 Indian rupees, every month. And so that's it. But it's been years of work, and I think, through the partnership with many organizations.
Yeah. And how would you like our listeners to promote and expand your work?
Maybe I should ask Rajesh to answer that one.
Yeah.
We would need prayer support because given the community we serve and the trauma they go through, it is sometimes emotionally draining for our staff, and so we need emotional resilience and spiritual strength and protection, because women staff, when they move into this these dark areas of red light district where men are lurking with predatory intent, and so there's a need of protection. And for the children in the hostel, we need prayer support because of the background and the social identity associated with their mother. They have emotional ups and downs, navigating various feelings and emotions which are unique to their own circumstance. And so that is one place. And the other thing would be financial contribution and sponsorships, because there are some projects where we don't have takers for it, like the prison work, we lack funding, and even with the women's work. So and we have made some tickets, like small tickets, big tickets, like annual tickets for the sponsorship of a child, or the reintegration of a women, or skill building of a women, or reintegration of a prisoner. So there is quarterly ticket, there is annual ticket. So if people can buy that or help us with funding. And or if you're working for a corporate company, introduce us to recommend Sahara to the CSR team. We would take it further from there. Also, there's an opportunity to volunteer with Sahara, intern with Sahara, just to have an hands-on experience of what God is doing with us, and also the opportunity to share God's love with the community we serve. If you're willing to work with us, do come and serve with Sahara. We also want you to share and advocate about Sahara. Encourage your church people, your friends, your family members to follow and support Sahara's vision and Sahara's follow us and support the social media account for Sahara, so that the work of Sahara finds more reach. And also, we would invite Sahara reps to speak on social forums or any fundraising event. We do have annual fundraising campaign. They could participate in that. And the last thing I would want is, if you are a domain expert and you could come and train us help us with capacity building or enhance our competencies in any way which you can help us. Yeah, so that is what I would request the listeners to help us and
Okay.
stand with us.
Okay, yeah, sure. And then, Rajesh, if you can just email me all the things that you just said, and I'll put that in my show notes. That way, listeners, if they want to partner with your organization, they will have easy access to that. So just go ahead and send that to me, okay? All right, that was great. So we'll move on now to serving orphans worldwide. I know this is a really long podcast, so if anybody needs to leave, just feel free to leave. But I just wanted to give everyone a good amount of time and freedom to talk, because to me, I think this is a very important topic. So don't worry if you have to leave, please do. All right, so I'm going to move on to serving orphans worldwide. So Aaron and I have been very fortunate to work with SOW because we've found somebody who has very similar vision and heart like we do, which is for the orphans. SOW has helped us to partner with other like-minded organizations around the world, because it's always hard to know what's happening in different countries without physically going there. And SOW literally does that. So SOW's mission is to identify struggling children's homes around the world that have a lot of potential, but can do with some assistance. So SOW assists in training opportunities and ongoing funding necessary to raise their quality of care and to provide the means for these homes to move beyond mere survival and to pursue self-sustainability. So SOW currently has, I think, around 81 children's homes in 32 countries, and they have rescued and assisted over 8,000 orphans. So to help us learn more about SOW, I have Reese Anderson, who is the Director of Development. Reese, if you, I think, yeah, you're already unmuted. So thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time to be here. Can you please share the founding story of SOW and its current state with our audience?
Yes, and thank you so much, Deepa, for sharing your platform to kind of shine a light on all these amazing agencies serving some of the most vulnerable children around the world. Our ministry was founded as a response to the global orphan crisis. And this is kind of a moving goalpost, and nobody knows for sure, but it's estimated that there are somewhere around 153 million children without a forever family. And if you look at a lot of the countries where these children are concentrated, there's not the social infrastructure that we are used to here in the U.S. with foster care. Adoption is not even legal. The Hague and some other international bodies that govern international adoption have closed that avenue in a lot of countries. And we always talk about the 3 C's of orphan care, and it ties in to this trafficking issue that we're talking about today. And that's that orphan care is corrupt, it's costly, and it's complicated. And so our role, and a lot of our founders and board members initially might have funded a capital project or helped build a campus, or invested in a business venture to bring income and sustainability to an orphan care project or children's home. And without fail, years later, something terrible would happen, economically or morally. Abuse reports. I mean, there's just so many sad situations when you really try to make a difference and make a dent in this global orphan crisis. And so we wanted to do something different, and our approach is a little bit unique. We are focused on global orphan care, specifically. And so I do just want to, I know time is short today. We've got a lot of folks. I want to share a few stories from this past year that tie in with kind of the trafficking topic that we have today. I was with a project director in Laos last month, and there's a situation there I heard about. When we think of trafficking, sometimes there's this Hollywood concept where children are just plucked off the street and forced into this terrible situation. It doesn't always work like that. We're finding, and this is common around the world, but specifically in Southeast Asia, for those of you that are familiar with that region, they'll come into small rural villages and offer poor families a job opportunity. You have an 11 or 12-year-old daughter. Okay, there's a restaurant in the city, and you're talking about a family that is making $1 to $3 a day out in the countryside. The opportunity for their daughter to go work in a restaurant and make 6, 7, 8 times that is really appealing. And so what'll often happen is those are traffickers a lot of times. And so you've got these sometimes younger than that, children, preteens, teenagers that are lured with these promises. And then they find themselves caught in a situation they can't get out of. So that director in that region, we're launching a new campus. There's a prevention home, a rescue home, and there's one new property that we're working with, and it's actually the first overtly Christian ministry that's received credentials in Laos. We're really proud of that. As you know, that's not the easiest country to operate in for some of the regulations, and in fact, they don't want to admit that there's a trafficking problem in that country. There's this new railroad cutting through the middle of the country. And within that zone, there's not a lot of, there's not a lot of legal accountability. So anytime like Chinese railroad workers or other railroad, they'll come in, and it's kind of like the Wild West, I guess, in America, where we built railroads across the country. Brothels will pop up, other criminal activity, drugs, and it all kind of goes hand in hand. So that was one thing last month. One of our projects, one of the 81 projects that we support each month. And we do monthly support. We do capital projects for new campuses, sustainability investments, and we do training. I'll hop over to India because I love what our friends from Sahara were just talking about in Mumbai. Our field coordinator in South Asia, his story is really fascinating, and he's an amazing photographer. His wife, Natasha, is a social worker and psychologist, and they do a lot of the site visits in India at our partner homes there. And at about 5 or 6 years old, they think his mother was one of those red light workers in Mumbai. His last memory of his mother, he was on a railroad platform somewhere between Mumbai and Nashik with his brother. And they looked up and their mom was just gone. And there were a couple of days. This is kind of a blur. He doesn't even know his real birthday. This was probably around 1990, 89 when this happened. And he was just taken to a big government-run institutionalized orphanage. And up until the age of 12, they just called him Bapu. He didn't even know his name. He spoke Nepalese. They assumed maybe his mom had come from Nepal and was working the streets in Mumbai. And so he grew up, terrible situation there in that big institutionalized orphanage which there's a lot of trafficking and exploiting happening in orphanages, especially in South Asia. But at 12 years old, the director said, you look like a Promote. We're going to name you Promote. So that's his name on his passport. I mean, that kind of became his official name. But you're talking about children who have no identity. They certainly don't have a future and a hope or a faith and a belief. And so our mission is to provide home, health, faith, and education to the children that we serve ultimately. And now Promote's doing an incredible job. He and his wife travel. If you look at our website, probably 90% of the photography is his work, video stuff. He's become an incredible part of our team. And so beyond just orphanage support and rescue operations and training, we also do scholarships for children aging out of care. So when they're 18, they don't just walk to the gates of the property and are given a bag and told good luck. I mean, this kind of becomes a family to them if they're not adopted before that. And so there's 2 sisters in southern India that are going through nursing school right now. And I think there's 80 something cases right now of scholarships. When I checked the spreadsheet last around the world that the projects can apply for that special funding, and we have that set aside and budgeted for each year because we really want to see these children. We don't want to, we want to prevent some bad things from happening. We want to address the trauma and fund that work when it's needed, but also we want to move them from dependence to independence when they reach adulthood. So I just said a lot of things, but in a nutshell, that's the scope of our ministry at So.
No, that was very, very insightful because it's one thing to just know about stats on paper and hear remotely about people's lives being affected, but this is someone you work with and who has tremendous skill set. I am always amazed at people having agendas to save the forests and save the earth, but how about the human beings? They have so much they can contribute to this planet. And I just feel like we don't root for these people enough. Their children, and like Sahara was also mentioning, their dreams that are being buried with these young kids who die so young because they're so vulnerable and they're exploited. So that Promote's story is so heartbreaking, but also encouraging that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and with organizations like yours, Reese, that's actually in so many parts of the world. And, Aaron and I, we were fortunate to go to Mama Wara in Tanzania also to see firsthand, because we had that same feeling that, okay, she has so much potential, but she can use a lot of help to expand what she's doing. So, and I know there's several like her and even in more worse situations that you guys have helped and sustained. So no, what you said was extremely useful and helpful. And so thank you so much for sharing that. And I think one thing that's very unique to SOW that I found interesting is that 100% of the donations go directly into orphan care. And I'm sure it's not cheap to have the administrative costs because you guys travel to the home countries to do site visits and things like that. So how do you manage all of that?
Yeah, so on the fieldwork side, we collect monthly reports, and when I say 81 partner homes, those are the ones that are guaranteed monthly funding. We've got some other relationships that are passed through or one-time projects, but to those 81 partner homes, we get monthly reports that they submit. We'll do one announced and one unannounced site visit. They fill out what's called a covenant agreement, an application for support, and we have a shared vision on what the quality of care should be. And we also, if staffing is an issue or education is an issue, like in Tanzania there at Mama Wara's home, I know that staffing has been an issue and brought up, and in certain cases, we'll send staff to go to university. We had one in Kenya that went to Nairobi and and is like an expert in trauma healing now. And so she's back, serving at the home. But with the 100% approach, we have two completely separate bank accounts. So one is our admin account and one is the program account. And, 100% of our admin is funded by a group of special supporters we call SO ambassadors. And it's a handful of board members and some other donors that believe that, their support can be multiplied. And so they fund everything from staff salaries to paper clips to global travel, and cover all of it from top to bottom, so that 100% of everything that you or anybody else who finds us, or if we go out and speak at an event or whatever, 100% of that's going to go directly to the field and go to our partner homes. And likewise, one great thing about that is, these relationships and these programs are not dependent upon, it's not a blank check forever. We don't take a cut of that to fund our admin. So there's no conflict for us to say cut a project if things aren't going well, or if they're getting funding from other sources, and they don't need it as much, we can make some strategic decisions completely independent on, hey, what percentage of this is going to admin? Do we need to keep this going a little while longer? And so that's been, before I got involved in SO, was working with some other nonprofits, and that's huge for us, is that we can focus on the pure mission and not get mission drift and not get bogged down in red tape and politics and things like that. We can focus on the outcomes that are measurable and invest in things that work.
Yeah, I think that's pretty genius. Can you also share your strategy for identifying children's homes that you deem have potential, and then later decide, yeah, this is a home that I'm going to support? How do you come up with that decision?
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now, we're still kind of a small to medium-sized agency, so it's all based on referrals and relationships. We have an application for support that's not public, that we share by invitation only. And so it's usually site visits, referrals. We've got a strong board, and a couple of the board members, we've got we've got a couple of folks that are really engaged globally in different work. And so we cast a wide net, and we certainly have more programs that we're aware of than we're able to fund. So that's how we do it, just through relationships.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense, because you need to know, like you were saying, there's so much corruption in orphan care, especially in certain countries where there isn't as much monitoring going on. So we have to do our due diligence, and building relationships would be the best way to do that, I would think.
Yeah, and we
Yeah.
have to have folks on the ground. I mean, real quick, looking at what has happened in Ukraine the last few years as an example, we had about a dozen partner homes, and now we've got like 5. Almost all of them were in the east, like Mariupol, places like that have been obliterated, and all those people resettled. And so it was key. I mean, the past few years there, we had to have like our people there on the ground, and bought a new property in the Carpathian Mountains and consolidated, and a couple of the directors moved to Germany or resettled to Poland. And so, we just try to stay flexible, and we don't try to be too scientific and objective, where sometimes just a good old, having somebody on the ground and knowing what's going on is the best approach.
Yeah, I'm sure. You work with what you have, right? And as far as your strategy for training, because you did mention online that the type of training you provide is to help homes move from mere survival to self-sustainability. So how do you achieve that?
Yeah, that's another great question. So there's the individual aspect where, key staff members, directors, or even children aging out of care will directly fund education. We also do regional trainings. So we had we just had a few months ago one in Argentina where all the South American staff were flown in. We put them all up in a hotel and had basically a conference and sharing best practices, brought in some speakers to talk about some of the things that you all are talking about with trauma and reactive attachment disorder and things like that they're gonna deal with, healthcare, just all that kind of stuff. And then we did one in Nairobi not too long ago and had a great participation in response. I think your friends in Tanzania were able to participate. So we will do regional trainings and conferences, if you call it that, as well. And on the sustainability side, you'll hear a lot of crazy ideas out there. I know you'll have donors, and I'm sure you've all experienced this, where, hey, let's just buy you some goats, or let's set up a garden, or let's, and that kind of stuff can help offset some things, like, when you're spending a lot of money on protein or groceries, but really, the reality is, these ministries are gonna need to fundraise. True sustainability is, they can't isolate themselves and just plan on having a garden to take care of all their needs. So we, for example, last month in DR Congo and in Goma in the eastern side, we just did we have been funding them about 60% of their monthly budget, and we just did a banquet. Pastor Kibbe there and one of those projects that we support, and they just did their first ever kind of fundraising event. They invited some local businesses in Goma. And if you know anything about Goma right now and Eastern DRC, it's not a very stable place. There's a lot of militia activity. There's a big volcano that's quite active nearby. And a lot of people said it was impossible for a place like that to be able to raise their own support and find some stability in the midst of chaos. And they just had a very successful dinner, and a lot of local businesses in Goma got involved. We've even had some families within the church network. There's a network of 90 pastors in Eastern DRC that are connected. Some of those families are now like adopting children. So there's this new culture of adoption. Some of the businesses are seeing what's happening and supporting, and they're starting to make some asks and not be ashamed of it. And there's something empowering to a community as well, where they can build their own network of support and not rely on foreign donations for every penny. We love to see that, because I think that's ultimate sustainability, is not just that we can invest in a business that they can generate income, but that they can engage their neighbors and share in that load of storytelling and fundraising and relationship management above and beyond the work they're doing with the children, because it's going to create long-term stability for them beyond what just us throwing money at something could.
Absolutely love that. Yeah, because before we got on this recording, one of the things that we had talked about is, how do we go to these home countries where victims are being trafficked the most? Because we've seen that the root causes are usually poverty, lack of opportunity, famine, wars. So how do we make it a viable place so people don't want to leave and feel like they can actually contribute to that community? So I think what you're doing makes so much sense from a sustainability perspective. How can our audience participate and support your ministry?
Yeah, so along with the others that shared earlier, we definitely need your prayers and support. Our website is sow.org. And so you can visit our website and check us out.
Yeah, so I've also put it on the slide. So when you guys are going through this podcast, you can look at the slide. The organization website would be listed there, and I'll also make sure it's in the show notes. All right, thank you. Thank you, Reese. So now moving on, last but not least, we have our OUR rescue partners, who I'm very excited to have here with us on the call. So we have Matt Osborne. He is the Global Ambassador for Operations and Education. So thank you, Matt. We are so genuinely grateful to have you here with us. Can you share OUR Rescue's profound impact globally in combating human trafficking? The work OUR does is truly inspiring. It has given hope to so many. So we are very interested in hearing about it from you.
Well, thank you, Deepa. This has been amazing for me to listen to these incredible experts that you've brought on the show. I feel unworthy when I see, and hear about everything going on globally and in India and elsewhere. But thank you. This, hopefully for your listeners and your audience, they can see how broad and vast this problem is of child sexual exploitation, commercial sexual exploitation, and human trafficking, and how it truly does take a village to fight this. And so all of these amazing organizations play a role in this, and their work is vital. We believe our work is vital as well. Our rescue has been around for 10 years. We were started as Operation Underground Railroad to fight modern day slavery. We saw that there was a gap in this fight. There were great groups on the front end focusing on prevention and education and holding conferences. That's so vital. And then on the back end, the survivor care. And as we heard today, the trauma-informed care, the ecosystem of orphanages and others, the demand problem. But we saw that there were few organizations willing to go into the darkest corners of the world and empower law enforcement to fight this crime, to help law enforcement build cases, to help use, unfortunately, the American face, the Western face that is perpetrating this in so many parts of the world. So that's how we got our start, starting overseas. Well, then we realized the need was great in the United States. So we started providing behind-the-scenes support in the United States to law enforcement, providing funding, specialized tools and training classes, high technology to really help go after these child predators. Then we realized how important, as we heard today, the aftercare is, the survivor care. So we built up a survivor care organization, not to have our own home. We hear amazing organizations here that do have their own homes and support homes. We are going to vet, we're going to support to give them the resources they need. And then our third pillar in recent years, as we've transitioned to our rescue, to focus on education and prevention. And Deepa, you talked about it, the role that pornography plays in this, that demand plays in this. If there was no demand for this, right, if we could end the demand, there would not be the need for trafficking victims, that type of exploitation. So what we're doing, and you see this chain here on the website, in the past, we talked about breaking the chain. Now we want to build a chain. And I'm so excited to hear about these organizations. We can build a chain. We can lock arms. But this is important for your audience to know. And as you heard at the outset, Dr. Deepa talking about the stats and force, fraud, and coercion. And this issue is not just in books and Hollywood movies and academics. I have led 27 undercover rescue operations over the many years to see face-to-face and to sit across the table from the most despicable traffickers who are bartering the life, the health, the freedom of a human being as if they were casually talking about a sack of potatoes, a bag of limes or tomatoes. It weighs this much, it costs this much, it will do this much. Truly disgusting. But in recent years, I've seen that the way we're going to defeat this is on the front end with education about demand and on the back end with helping. And it's cliche, but I think my expert panelists would agree. There's a lot to be said about helping a victim become a survivor and a survivor to become a thriver, to get back onto the life that God had intended for her. And I love this Christian focus because we bring people from all faiths. All faiths are welcome. Even some people on our team profess to have no faith, but they say, I know there's good and difference between good and evil, and I'm on the side of good. But when you think about Christ and what the Savior did, and in the Bible, I can really only remember 2 times that Jesus got very angry. One, obviously, when he turned over the money changing tables in the temple. But if you remember the second time he got angry, and it's recorded in 3 of the 4 Gospels where Christ says, It would be better for him that a millstone be put around his neck and he be cast into the middle of the deepest ocean than for him to cause one of these children to sin. I'm obviously paraphrasing that scripture. I don't have it memorized, but think about that. Christ is saying, almost in mafia style, mafioso, it would be better for him that a millstone, this 1,000-pound stone be put around his neck and he be drowned than for him to cause one of these children to sin. So we know that God is not neutral in this. And we, as his hands and feet, we need to go out and bring Christians together, bring believers together, non-believers alike, and realize and educate everyone that this is trafficking, not prostitution. These are victims and not volunteers. And I'll wrap up this portion, and then any questions you have, and my amazing colleague Kika can speak as well. But everyone listening now to Deepa and her podcast and these guests, you might be thinking, what can I do to fight this? How can I make a difference in a $150 billion industry where there are tens of millions of slaves and slave labor going on today? And I would say, think in your heart, say a prayer. Everyone can do something. Can you pray? Can you donate? Can you post on social media? Can you provide guests for Dr. Deepa's show and others? Can you start talking about this? Can you demand that your politicians in whatever country, and we've got a couple of different countries here represented, demand that your politicians strengthen laws against trafficking? Don't just punish the victims that we've seen too often in our society. Go after the traffickers, go after the buyers. There's something that we can do, and in the end, to lock arms. So I'll stop for now, but thank you, Dr. Deepa, Dr. Grandon, for having this topic. People shy away from this. The church shies away from this. I've known pastors before that say, I just don't want to talk about pornography. It's too dark. We have to talk about it. We have to bring a light to this. And I know that that's how we're going to defeat Satan. This is, in my mind, pornography, breaking up the family, sex trafficking is the biggest weapon Satan has against the good people and believers of this world. Drugs, alcohol, other things are weapons, but this is what I think. And so we have to counter this with all that we have.
Yeah, that was a great share, Matt. And I'd like to also give a plug-in to OUR's movie, The Sound of Freedom, which is also a great movie if you guys haven't watched it. That also kind of touches on a lot of the different processes, that the deception, and even Reese was talking about the relationships that these traffickers create in these poorer communities and prey on vulnerable people. So it's very good for us to be aware of their strategies so we can educate those who we have access to so they know to be careful. And then last but not least, I have our wonderful Kika, who is the development specialist at OUR Rescue. So welcome, Kika. Thank you so much for waiting till the very end to share your story. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? How did you get involved in this work?
Well, of course, first of all, thank you so much for the privilege and honor that is to be part of this podcast. Deepa and I have been chatting via email for quite a while now. She's a great supporter of all the causes involved in this podcast, and we are very lucky to have you as a partner. I am originally from Brazil, you can tell by the accent, and I moved to the US 23 years ago. Growing up in Brazil, I was lucky to have access to a better way of living. However, it always made me so sad to see so much poverty and sadness around me, especially when it comes to children. So from a young age, I always felt that it was my duty to do more. If I have more, I have to help more. And when I moved to the US in 2001, I started to volunteer at the university to what I could do, and eventually learned about our rescue, previously Operation The Ground Railroad, in 2015. Shortly after they were founded. And I did what I could do. I would come to events, I would volunteer. I became a monthly donor because I felt that I needed to do something. Today, I am blessed and lucky to be a full-time employee at our rescue, and I mainly talk to our donors. I try to share resources. I try to share education. One of my favorite things about my job is to share what we do with the money that is sent to us, all the services that we are able to provide to law enforcement agencies in the U.S. and all over the world, specifically Asia, Middle East, Africa, Central and South America, and Europe. How we partner with aftercare homes and services, and how we are putting a big emphasis now on education, because we do believe that education is a key part of prevention, as you have talked about today as well. So that's a little bit about me. I feel like this is it's like that quote says, when you do what you love, you never work a day in your life, right? So that's how I feel. And if I can help spread the word a little bit and impact one heart, impact one person, that will impact another heart, another person, that is great. We keep moving the service forward.
Yeah, that's so beautiful, Kika. I mean, we can never underestimate the power of a person doing something they love, especially work like this that doesn't give you any personal benefit, but you're doing it purely because you love God and you love God's people. So that's very inspiring. What tips would you provide to listeners who want to get involved in similar work like yours?
Oh, wow. I have a lot. However, for the sake of time, I would say think about what your heart is calling you to do, which organization or which type of organization do you want to donate your time, resources, and even money to. And I believe that whatever you love to do, you can turn that into a fundraising effort. Because let's be honest, we all want to do more. I want to talk to donors. I hear a lot of, I want to do more. How can I go and help the children? I want to be hands-on. But a lot of times, specifically in other countries where the US dollar goes a long ways when it comes to currency exchange, donating makes a huge impact, right? Donating funds. So if you love baking, you can do a bake sale. If you live in the area that has a movie theater, you can host a documentary to spread the word. As Matt said, you can post on social media. We have several events, like we have a pickleball group, a tennis group. We have Athletes Against Trafficking. We have Faith in Action. There are so many programs, and I guarantee that if your heart is calling you to something, it's because there is a way, God has prepared a way for you to fulfill that wish. So think about what organization do you feel called to help. Think about the time that you have. Do you want to volunteer in person? Do you want to post about it? Do you want to host a fundraising event? Those orgs, we will all feel super lucky to have your help and to give you resources to accomplish what you want to do. So that's what I would share.
All right, wonderful. So thanks to all of you who have been here so patiently sharing, and more importantly, for what you do every day. Your life, the day you were born, is such a blessed day because you're making such a huge difference in so many people's lives, especially in some really dark places that most people would prefer not to go to, but you're like going in. So thank you all for what you do. Is there anything else any one of you would like to share with the audience before we conclude this podcast? Okay.
I want to share my gratitude because it was amazing to get to meet you all. And I always feel so inspired when I learn about the work of others. So thank you for sharing your heart. Thank you for sharing your calling. And thank you, Deepa, for allowing us to meet each other to your platform.
Yeah. So great. So we will definitely be hearing from each other in the future and doing more work together. So take care, everyone. Bye.